and welcome to Sierra Make. Today we are going to please upload a video on fur jeans. Fur jeans. Fur jeans. Okay, let's go. So I'm guessing what you meant by fur jeans is a pair of full fur pants, but I actually want to take that fur jeans idea and run with it. So I've got a pair of jeans here and some fur, and we'll see what we can make out of these. First, a little look at these jeans. I grabbed these from the thrift store. They were less than $5, woot woot, and and they are Forever 21 jeans, size 31, and here's what they look like on me. This is the before look. Yep. You can see I tried out some different lighting. But anyways, let's jump into patterning out my idea. So I'm thinking of doing a sort of bell-bottom type fur thing on these pants. So before I pattern that, I'm going to need to take a few measurements. The first one will be the circumference of my calf, because I'm going to have to be able to slide up whatever it is I put on, and the distance from the bottom of my knee to my foot. Now, with the circumference of my calf, I can figure out the radius of that. If you can't do the math, just use Google, type it in, and get the radius. And then you're going to add the radius of your calf to the length from your knee to your foot. And that is going to be the full radius of the circle that you're going to pattern out. So I just made a little dot, which is the center of my circle, and then that full radius is the length of the string, and I'm just drawing my circle that way. Once that's done, I'm cutting it out, making sure that the circle is a full circle. I'm also drawing my calf radius on there, the smaller one, so that I have a hole in the center of this donut. Basically, I'm going to make a circle skirt, but for my knees. For my calves. Now I'm going to take that and turn it into 3 pieces because I have 3 different colors of fur that I want to use. I folded it in half just because it would be easier to turn it into thirds that way. And there's my pattern. Now let's start cutting it out of the fur. So I'm going to need 2 of each color, so 6 pieces in total. I started off with this pink. Here I am pinning it, and now I'm going to cut it. There's our first piece. And one thing to note about this fabric is it's so stiff, it doesn't really fray. It almost has this like plasticky texture to it, which means I don't need to hem this pants leg, and I can cut as close to the pattern as I want since I'm not counting for seam allowance because I'm not hemming it. On to the next color. So another thing about this fur is that the nap of it is really long. The fur hairs are super long, and I don't want to cut those as I'm cutting this fabric. So to avoid doing that, I'm being really careful as I slide these scissors along the fur, and I'm actually pointing them upwards a little bit so that I just end up cutting the netting bit and not the fur hairs themselves. On to the last color. Oh my god. I should have checked how much fur I had. It's too short. Yeah, if you watch my videos, you'll know that I wing every single project that I do. I don't really plan ahead at all. And for this one, I didn't even check to see if I had enough fabric to do this project. I just started it. I just started cutting it, but it's not a huge deal. I just used some of the scrap and I patched it together to make the full pieces that I needed. So here's a piece of scrap, and I just marked where the other one cuts off so that this one can start at the same spot. And I added a little extra space so that I can sew the 2 pieces together. And speaking of sewing, let me show you how to sew this fur together. With the first side up, go ahead and grab a comb with a pick on the end of it, or anything that has kind of a pointed end, and we are going to separate the fur along the line that we're going to sew. So I'm just sliding my pick in between that fur and slowly separating the hairs like you can see here. Then for the upper part, I'm going to brush the hairs up a little bit and then separate them, because right now they're all heading downwards and I just need a thin line of them to face downwards. This part's a little painstaking, but trust me, it's worth it. Here's a closer look at that fur separation. You can see a pretty distinct line, kind of like a little part in the hairs. And now to sew these together, we're going to line both of our splits together and pin that down. One easy way to tell if your lines are matching up is that center area will be a valley. So it'll be just the net touching each other with no fur creating some volume. Then you just sew along that split and there we go. Let's brush the hairs back down. You can see it looks super smooth. It kind of just blends in with each other. Versus if I had not parted the hairs before, there would be a big bulk where that line is. The last little touch I did for this was I cut the fur on the back of it so that there wouldn't be that bulk on the back of it. So I'm just grabbing all that mass of fur and I'm slicing it, making sure to not accidentally cut the line I just sewed. There's our 6 pieces with 2 of each color. Now that I have those all cut out, I can start sewing them into circles. So I've just laid it out in a circle and now I'm going to do all of those sewing tips that I just told you. So I'm going to part the hairs and I'm going to line it up, pin it, and sew that closed. Since I already explained how to sew these furs together, let's just listen to some music. With those done, it's time to move on to putting them on the pants. You can see here I've marked the bottom of my knee with a safety pin on both sides, and I'm just going to grab a piece of chalk and make that into a non-permanent line, just so I know where I want to attach my bell bottoms to. Before I attach the bell bottoms though, I first have to capri these pants. That's because the full length of the pant won't fit over my sewing machine. So if you've got an extra long sewing machine or something like that and you can sew it, I would leave the bottom of the pants like there. But because it won't fit over mine, I'm just cutting the bottom of it and zigzagging the edge so it doesn't fray. It doesn't really matter because it won't be seen under the bell bottom anyways. So now let's pin this giant circle to the bottom of our pants leg. I'm just going to line up that first chalk line that I made with the edge of my fur and pin it all in place and sew it. Let's play the music again. So as you can see, I decided to make the butt pockets furry by sewing on some pocket-shaped patches of fur just straight onto the pocket. I didn't have to fold the fabric over or anything because remember, this fabric doesn't fray, so it's totally fine, and the fur covers up my raw edges. There is the finished pants. Man, look at all of that fabric. I have no idea where I'm going to store these because they take up so much space. Let's try them on. Oh my gosh, that is so flamboyant. I had to put on boots because it was a little long because the tips of the fur would drag on the ground. And I think it was pretty funny that I had to lift up the skirt just to access my foot. But let's do a before and after. What can I say? I mean, you can't find those at Forever 21. They are 100% Rave pants. Like, they're a little impractical with how much weight and size the bottom of them take up, but they are so fun, and whenever I looked down, I just felt like I had monster feet on. I definitely could have used half the amount of fur that I did, but I really like the mermaid silhouette that it gives off with that little flared edge, and you know what? It's fun. This would be a great, costume for something. Especially if you're someone who likes bright colors and neons, because oh my gosh, I don't know if you noticed throughout the whole video, but my camera was having so much trouble, toning down the brightness of the fur. As you can see, it's not doing a great job here, but that's just how bright and eye-catching these pants are. Anyways, that's it for this week's video. I hope you like my interpretation of fur jeans. If you did, hit that like button. Comment down below if you would wear a pair of jeans like this and what would you wear it to. Share this video with your flamboyant friends, and please subscribe because I post every Friday at 3. Thank you for watching.